Sometimes when you're walking these trails out here and you go to these Civil War fortifications, you go to places that you've probably been to often and you learn about things over and over again that you've heard over and over again, and you end up relearning the information, the history of it. And then sometimes you get so caught up in it that you completely skip over things and miss stuff. And today, at the end of this video, we're going to go to a place here in Richmond that I have never been to before. It's an actual Civil War fort. It's right there behind me. We'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. It takes a whole lot of earthworks and a whole lot of forts in order to protect an entire city like Richmond. Today we're out at a couple of forts out here in the Richmond National Battlefield system, and we're going to go around and see what all exists out here of these networks of forts, and possibly run into a couple of deer or two. But we're going to check out these places, give a little bit of the history that happened in and around the area, and then talk about the earthen forts themselves on this episode. Hope you stick around for more. Much of what we see inside here is actually rebuilt from a corps of men that came out here much later after the war and put a lot of attention into Fort Hoke, which is the location that we're at right now. Fort Hoke was important because of the attack that happened just after Fort Harrison fell. On the 29th of September in 1864, O.C. Ord decides he's going to attack down in this direction towards Fort Hoke. And his men actually capture this location that I'm at right now. But unfortunately for the men that captured this spot, it was an empty victory, just like the sign says right out front. They get the location. O.C. Ord falls wounded almost immediately after attacking. And while they're holding this place, they're told to report back to Fort Harrison. So the men abandon this position just as the large line of Confederate soldiers come back up here to retake this position, finding it virtually abandoned. So it was a short-lived victory, but Fort Hoke is still here today, portions of it that is, and you can come out here at the Richmond National Battlefield Park System and visit Fort Hoke just past Fort Harrison, which we did a video about here recently. In its earliest days, the park system here had the Civilian Conservation Corps come out here and build the work the roads and work the forts themselves to build this stuff up for the public to come visit. And at that time, the Civilian Conservation Corps was primarily African American out here, and they paid a lot of attention to this particular fort. No other fort in the system received as much attention by those men than Fort Hoke itself. So it's pretty neat to know that the majority of this was actually probably put back together by those men out here in the earliest days of this park system as a way to restore history out here for people to enjoy when they come to visit the location. So we're going to push on from here, and we're going to go to another location that is on our map of forts to visit, and hopefully with all this snow and ice that's out here, we can actually get out there to those locations and put them on video for you. So I'm out here at Fort Johnson now at this location, just right over here. This sign here talks about the landmines that used to lie between here and Fort Harrison, which is about 1,000 feet and or 1,000 yards in that direction over there. And we just recently did that video that I was talking about out there in regards to the attack that happened on Fort Harrison. But what we didn't talk about was the treacherous conditions that lay between there and here. During that attack, 200 Georgia infantrymen and some Virginia artillerists end up packed inside of this fort over here at Fort Johnson, or this location. This ends up becoming like the northernmost anchor of the new defense works out here once Fort Harrison fell to the Union soldiers. The 2nd Pennsylvania Heavy Artillery, which was converted into an infantry-style unit, came out here to attack this location. But from here, they had the vantage point that they needed to be able to see all the forts going all the way down the line and to see the position that was completely cleared of all the trees over here, just off in this direction, to Fort Harrison. And in between here, every 2 to 5 feet, was a cannonball with a particular type of fuse on it, buried in the ground. And as men came across this field, if they stepped on top of that fuse, it snapped that fuse. That fuse would explode, the shell would go up, and just like a landmine, it would take a limb off and kill anybody or maim anybody that was near it. This was the kind of stuff that those Union soldiers were having to deal with as they came across the field out here trying to attack Fort Johnson, Fort Hoke, or any other forts that were out here. And just look at the depth of these fortifications out here at Fort Johnson. Some pretty amazing stuff. I'm going to back this video out a little bit so you can see it a little better. Look at that, high bank here. It comes off in this direction, wraps around here, and then moves on down that way. And we'll walk a little further down to this portion of earthworks over here, leading from the fort itself. This is some pretty amazing stuff. All these high defense walls are out here, and you can kind of see off in the distance there too, another section of earthworks that are built right back in that direction. This is Fort Johnson. Well, already this trip out here to take a look at these forts, these earthen forts, is turning out to be a pretty good trip for this video. Not a lot of people come out here to this location to check these things out, even though they're readily available. And I'd say probably springtime, maybe fall time is the best time to come out here and check this out. But if you're one of those people that like to see what's hidden in the woods, wintertime is great too. Right now we have some snow on the ground, so it's making it a lot easier to be able to see what these forts look like and where all the earthen works are out there in the woods. So we're going to push off from here, and we're going to head down the way. Fort Gilmer and a couple other spots are down there that we're going to check out. And then we're going to head over to a place that's got a terrific view on the river. I hope the cleats don't put too much noise in the video, but we're out here at Fort Gilmer now. And we'll flip this around here so you can see it pretty well and add some video to this footage. So out here at this location, that attack, that failed attack on September 29th of 1864 was very dramatic out here. And the reason for it was that very first initial wave of soldiers that came across here wasn't very big. There was about 200 USCT, U.S. color troops, that came across this field. They were ordered to attack Fort Gilmer. And they attacked the wall right there behind me. And as they were approaching this wall, about a third of them were shot down before they reached the wall. Then when they get to the wall, they climb and claw their way to try to get up over 14-foot high walls. Now we're talking huge walls over here, and you can even see the extent of some of the height here in front of me of what these walls would have looked like. By the time the fight was over with for those soldiers that came across here, 3 of the 200 made it out of here. Almost all of them ended up killed, wounded, or captured trying to take this fort. And later on, a reporter with the Richmond Dispatch came out and witnessed the scene out here. And he talked about seeing those soldiers in the ditches around this fort. And they were laying there shot in all different types of manner with their arms and legs extended as if in peace and ready to go to the Lord. This was a very, very dangerous situation out here. This fort actually ends up staying in Confederate hands until April of 1865, when it is finally turned over to the United States Army when they enter into Richmond. Now, it's somewhat hard to tell when you take a look at this fort, but I'm in the Fort Gilmer, which is part of this here. And you can see those huge mounds out in front of me here. And then the earthworks that are here at this location, gun embrasures, and all of this out in front there. Now, that story I was telling you about the 200 USCT coming across this field and attacking this location, this happened right out front here in front of this fort. And there's a picture on the sign, and I'll put video of it up here. It shows the different units that fought out here and attacked this location and how many subsequent piecemeal attacks they made on this fort itself. One unit attacked up to 5 different times coming across that field, and pretty much all for nothing, because they did not take this location. It stayed in the hands of the Confederate Army the entire time, even throughout the siege itself of Petersburg. And really, there was nothing but lives lost out here for an attack that, if it would have worked, would have busted this line wide open and left the door wide open to Richmond. Well, that's some real neat stuff there. We're going to push off from here and try to find another location out here, part of this battlefield system, and see what other forts are located around here. Now, I know I passed a couple of spots out here that are probably not accessible. They do not look like they have parking lots, so may have to try to pull off the road somewhere and see if I can't see if anything exists of those fortifications. And we'll put that in the video. But if not, we'll move on to the next location that has a nice parking lot and more stories to tell here in this video about the forts in and around Richmond. So getting around out here is a little bit different if you don't know the fortifications, which I'm not 100% familiar with this spot. But I'm walking from Gilmer now to go back to Gregg, because I drove down that way and I could see that due to the snow, there's definitely no place to pull off and go look at it. I don't know if when the snow's cleared out there is a good place to pull off or not. Looks like it might be private property there just in front of the fort. But this gives us a good opportunity to see the front side of Fort Gilmer here, where those soldiers attacked. So I'm gonna get a good view of the front of this fortification and go check out Fort Gregg while we're at it. So here's the front of Fort Gilmer. And there's that ditch that the reporter was probably talking about when he stood up on the walls here and could see the black troops, the USCT, laying down there dead in that ditch. And they attacked coming from this direction over here, where there is now a house placed on that field. And these houses around here have probably been here for a very long time, a lot of them. The property's been owned by generations of people. So, but fortunately for us, spots like these are still preserved by the National Park System for you to come out here and see. And the earthworks, the actual walls, run the length of the road itself. So we're going to walk on down here to Fort Gregg and see what we can see out there. So it looks like we're looking at Fort Gregg right here. Now the only sign that's posted out here is the one that talks about the Richmond defenses, which is right there. And then the park boundary sign, which basically indicates where you can and cannot go, disturbing things. And for the sake of these fortifications, obviously we're going to stay off of them. But you can see what's left of this right here. And we'll make our way around the front here towards the larger portions that you can see from the road. This, according to what's been posted on the map here, is Fort Gregg. And I do see the resemblance of a fort. Embrasures here, nice tall walls, extended out from the actual main line itself. And you can see the main line of earthworks coming down the road here. And then this kind of sticks out itself. And Fort Gilmer that we came from is off in that direction over there, probably about a quarter mile, maybe a little bit more than that. And then Johnson is back off in this direction over here, about quarter to half a mile down that road. And then further down is Harrison. So this is it. Fort Gregg. Now this is some pretty amazing stuff that I'm seeing out here. And I've never been to this fort before. But you can look off in the background here at how it kind of rises up, almost like a ramp, if you will. And it rolls off into two separate directions here with the earthen walls that surround us, all in this area. This is Fort Gregg, right over from Gilmer. I'm going to turn this around too so you can see what I'm looking at directly right out front, and I'll point it out as I'm looking at it. Now the other day the snow helped us, prevented us from being camouflaged with our walls, but today is kind of hindering us a little bit. You have the walls here of the fort, and it's kind of going in a circle, and then a ramp here, and then a wall that runs over here. This is all Fort Gregg. And this is pretty cool. And this is on the National Park's actual battlefield road itself, out here where Fort Harrison is, and it is part of the property of the National Battlefield Park. It is really, really tall in some areas and kind of low in others. And definitely one of those areas where you can stand back from a distance and kind of respect it, respect the space that you're in, but just don't climb up on the walls itself. But this is a really beautiful spot here at Fort Gregg. I just wanted to make sure to get this in the video here. We started down at this inn at Fort Hoke. We passed through Battery White, Battery X, and we did a video the other day at Fort Harrison where the visitor center is. And then today we went up to Fort Johnson. You can see the small portion there that we went to. And then across the street there at Fort Gregg is where we were just at. And before that was Fort Gilmer. And then right out here on the road is Battery Alexander, which is actually off in this direction. So Alexander, Gilmer, and Greg is down the road across the street. All in all, I'd say it's been a pretty good trip here. We're going to see if we can't find at least one, maybe two more spots that are listed out here as being forts or fortifications. And maybe, if we get a chance, go down to some of these battery sites here, what looks like the Union defenses of the battery. I'm walking out to a location that, quite frankly, I'm not sure I've even been here before. The previous times I visited this area, I get so caught up in Fort Harrison and the story over there that I kind of stick to that, and I don't really hit Fort Brady. But here we are today at Fort Brady. It is a massive fortification behind me, and it's facing the James River. And it was put here to counteract the Confederate fortifications on the other side of the James River that was also causing havoc on the Union lines here. But during 1864 and 1865, Confederate soldiers and Union soldiers put up miles and miles and miles of earthen fortifications. They were digging dirt constantly to try to counteract the movements of the other side. And this ends up turning into that 9-month siege at Petersburg. But this fort here stops the Confederate Navy in its tracks. It keeps them from coming up the line there and basically firing on locations that were strongholds for the Union Army, and it stops those forts on the other side from causing havoc across the James River here on these positions where the Union soldiers are. Now, this fortification is no small feat. It's a massive fort. It's huge. And we're going to walk out here and kind of show you briefly what there is to offer out here, because we're also going to talk about life inside this fort at Fort Brady for the Union soldiers here and the attack that happened in January of 1865. And we're going to put that in another video to cover this a little bit more closely and to have a better experience about that story. This video that we're in right now is basically just to briefly cover the earthen fortifications that you can see out here in Richmond. Now, why earth? Why not bricks? Well, number one, time consuming. It takes a lot more time to put something together with bricks. Number two, those brick fortifications usually were not sturdy at best, and they could not take the impact that a lot of these dirt forts could take. So when cannonballs were being fired and projectiles, the earth was actually stronger at stopping those projectiles from entering the fort for some odd reason. So, wow. This place is huge, especially compared to where we've just been between Hoke, Johnson, and Gilmer. This is massive. You got to look at this. This whole open space here, stretching all the way out back towards the river, is surrounded in earthen walls. This is beautiful. Now, unfortunately, some of these signs out here at this fort kind of reminds me of a time that funding forgot. They are in pretty bad shape. Some of them are barely readable or legible, and they're just molded and corroded and falling apart. Some of them are in pretty decent shape, but for the most part, it's kind of like some of the other things that I've seen around this area so far, fallen in major disrepair. I don't really understand the logistics behind everything, because I'm not a national park ranger or anybody that works with the national park, honestly. So I couldn't tell you why this stuff looks like this. But it seems like maybe a generation ago really cared about these signs and put up some decent signs for people. And they've lasted for a while. They're made of fiberglass, it looks like, but they are slowly deteriorating and falling apart in a place that really should have a visitor center or something out here to help people understand what happened inside this fort. Now here's a very interesting photo taken by Andrew J. Russell and T.C. Roach. This is a massive gun right here. And it was taken, it says, it was taken from the parapet behind us. So I'm assuming that that means standing on top of this parapet here, they took the photograph of the gun and its embrasure right here. But from up here at this height. I'm holding my camera up for the view. And that's pretty amazing stuff to be able to see all of this coming together like that. That gun, all of the work that's gone into the wall here. And there's the hole that would have went into. And you can even see very sharp corners, edges here of the walls. The same thing with the photograph right here. And I'll see if I can't pull that up from the Library of Congress and then kind of overlay that here. And we'll back out just a little bit and I'll try to overlay that photograph right here in this picture. And I'll put it up for about 10 seconds or so while you guys are hanging out and watching this clip here. And then, like I said, we're going to have a better video about the fight that happened here and the Confederate Navy that was defeated out here on the James River. That's some pretty interesting stuff there. To be able to pass over history like that, walk right through what happened. And I can see the James River from up here too, all the way down below. Probably not going to be able to do that during the summertime. There's a lot of trees out here. A lot of brush that definitely gets in the way. It's pretty amazing down there though, great view. I mean, just look at this place. Yeah, I've definitely never been here before. This is amazing. And then they have another picture here with the powder magazine right in front of where that powder magazine would have been. So you can kind of line up historic photographs in this place and do a real good video or picture comparison, if you will, of this place and teach this to kids. Teach this to the kids in the history programs around the nation. I mean, this area is so thick in history, they can bring the kids out here and just let them see this for themselves. But for people that are in other locations like California and Nevada and out on the West Coast not being able to get to this place to see it, these pictures are really important. And these locations are too. Well, to briefly discuss what happened here, and without going into too many details, because we're wrapping up here on this video, and our next subsequent video will be about the action that happened inside Fort Brady. But in January of 1865, the Confederate Navy decides it's going to float its way down the James River. And it's going to attack Fort Brady and other locations. And as it starts to float down, it is hitting Fort Brady with everything it has. Unbeknownst to them, or maybe it is, I don't know, they run right into the flotilla that belongs to the Union Army. And as they're being attacked over there, they have to turn those ships around and leave this location. At the same time, the fortifications across the river from the Confederate Army are also attacking here. And the whole point was to get in here and to attack City Point and be able to gain control of that because it's a vital supply route for the Union Army during the siege that's going on. It's unsuccessful. And this fort here particularly rained hell down on those Confederate Navy vessels out there. There was 11 of them total, and continued to fire on them mercilessly until they were completely out of here and out of range. Inside the fort, however, there were some people that suffered as a result of the fight. And we'll put all that together in another video and walk around here and discuss what happened here at Fort Brady. And that's for another time. I really hope that you all enjoyed the little tour that we put together here of the fortifications around Richmond that was meant to protect Richmond from the encroachment of the Union soldiers and Fort Harrison and such. And we look forward to putting out a good video about Fort Brady coming up here pretty soon. And we are also going to do a little something on Dahlgren's raid and the controversy that surrounds Dahlgren and Judson Kilpatrick's raid in Richmond, Virginia. We're gonna hit up a few spots over there that most people don't go to, places that you really can't park and go to. See if we can't pull off on the side of the road and try to dig up some more history for some really good videos coming up here pretty soon. Also, to put it back out there again, in April, the first week, the Gettysburg Film Festival is going down. I will definitely be there for that, along with other people from channels you probably like JD from History Underground. I'm pretty sure Chris from Vlogging Through History is going to be there. Matt Callery from Addressing Gettysburg. All the gang will be out there walking the fields and enjoying the Gettysburg Film Festival, because it's an excellent time, a great place to go visit, and a good time to go visit Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Really, any time is a good time to visit Gettysburg. So, until next time, we'll see you out there on those fields. This is History with Waffles.